Welcome to my channel, my friend. Let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever tried learning English again and again, but still, it doesn't feel natural? Like it's something outside of your life? You study, you memorize, but you don't feel it in your heart? In this video, I will share with you the real secret. How I made English a part of my daily life, forever. No stress, no pressure, just small changes, big results. Do you feel English is still not part of your life? Chapter 1. The day I realized English was not in my life. I remember that day so clearly, even now. I was sitting in my room with an English grammar book in front of me, the same book I had been reading for months. I looked at the pages filled with rules, exercises, and examples. My eyes moved from one line to another, but my heart felt heavy. I could read the words. I understood the grammar. I even remembered the definitions. But deep inside, something felt wrong. I asked myself a question that changed everything. Why can't I speak English like I understand it? And that simple question opened the door to the biggest truth I had been ignoring. English was not in my life. It was just in my notebook. I had been learning English for years, but still, it felt like a stranger. I studied English like a subject. I memorized verbs. I solved worksheets. I passed exams. But when I walked outside, when I talked to people, or even when I spoke to myself, there was no English. I didn't think in English. I didn't speak in English. I didn't even feel English. It was like learning how to swim by reading a book, but never touching water. I suddenly realized I had been working hard, but in the wrong direction. And that moment became my turning point. That night, I couldn't sleep. My heart was full of questions. I remembered all those times when I hesitated to speak. When someone asked me, "Can you speak English?" I would say a little, even though I had studied it for years. I remembered the times when I wanted to express my feelings in English, but the words didn't come. I remembered the pain of watching English movies with subtitles, understanding the words, but not feeling the meaning. I had knowledge, but no connection. I felt frustrated, but I also felt something else, hope. Because finally, I understood the real problem. English was not my problem. The way I was learning it was the problem. I walked to my mirror and looked at myself. I asked, what if I started to live with English like a friend? Not just learn it, not just read it, but live with it, like I live with my mother tongue. I thought, what if I start my day with English? What if I talk to myself in English? What if I make English part of my morning, my evening, my life? That small idea felt powerful, because for the first time, I wasn't thinking about passing an exam. I was thinking about making English my habit, my helper, my daily voice. The next morning, I tried something new. I woke up and instead of checking my messages or thinking in my native language, I whispered a small English sentence. Good morning. I'm ready to learn. It was simple. It was soft, but it felt like magic. I smiled at myself. For the first time, I felt English not just in my mind, but in my heart. It wasn't perfect. I wasn't fluent, but I felt something different. I was present with English, and that presence gave me power. That day, I started looking at my world with new eyes. My toothbrush became my English speaking tool. My mirror became my conversation partner. My walk to the store became my listening time. I realized something beautiful. English was already around me. I just had to open the door. That's the lesson I want to give you, my friend. If you are struggling to speak, if you feel English is still far from your real life, don't blame yourself. Don't think you are not smart. Don't think you need more grammar. What you really need is this. Bring English into your daily life, step by step. Let it enter your morning, your room, your thinking, your world. It doesn't matter how many words you know. What matters is, do you use them in your life? Do you talk to yourself? Do you write your feelings? Do you listen when you're walking, cooking, or resting? English is not just a subject. It is a language, and language is for living. If you don't use it, you lose it. But if you start using it, even in small ways, it starts growing like a flower in your mind. And one day, without fear, you will speak. You will smile. You will connect. This is only the beginning of my story. But I want you to remember this first moment. The day I realized that English was not in my life was the day I started bringing it in. I didn't wait to become fluent. I didn't wait for a perfect course. I just started with what I had. And that, my friend, changed everything. Are you ready to bring English into your life too? Then stay with me. Because in the next, Chapter 2, Why English Felt Like a Stranger. When I think back to my early days of learning English, I remember a strange feeling. It was like I was learning something very far from me, something cold, like a machine. English didn't feel like a voice. It didn't feel warm. It didn't feel like something I could live with. It felt like a subject in school, full of hard words, grammar boxes, rules, red crosses, and fear. Even though I was spending time with English, it still felt like a stranger in my life. And this is the feeling that many English learners know too well. We study English. We spend hours. But we don't feel close to it. We don't feel it belongs to us. And when something feels like a stranger, you cannot trust it. You cannot love it. You cannot use it freely. That is what happened to me. And that's what happens to millions of learners every day. I used to memorize vocabulary lists. I wrote down 20 new words every week. But I didn't use them in a sentence. I didn't speak them. I didn't feel them. So I forgot them. I tried to learn tenses, passive voice, conditional sentences, but I never connected those to real life. I didn't use English to say how I feel. I didn't use it to tell a story or describe my day. I used it only to pass tests. And slowly, I built a wall between English and my emotions. That wall made English a stranger, a visitor who comes only for exams, a guest who never lives with you. I also felt fear, deep fear. Every time I had to speak English in front of others, my hands became cold. My heart beat faster. I was scared of being judged. I didn't want to sound foolish. I didn't want to make mistakes. And this fear made English even more distant. I avoided conversations. I said yes and no, but I never shared what I truly thought. And this silence made English feel even more like a stranger. It's like meeting someone every day, but never talking to them. Slowly, the distance grows. One day, I saw a child speaking English confidently. That child was not perfect, but he was happy. He was using simple words. He was laughing, playing, talking without fear. And I asked myself, why can he speak so freely, and I can't? The answer was clear. He didn't learn English as a subject. He lived with it. He used it to express joy, to ask questions, to connect. That child didn't treat English like a stranger. He treated it like a friend. That moment taught me something powerful. English will always feel distant if you don't build a relationship with it. So I started asking deeper questions. How do I make English feel like home? How do I stop treating it like a guest and start living with it like a friend? And the answer was simple, but powerful. I had to stop focusing only on grammar books. I had to stop thinking of English as something outside my life. I had to bring English into my world, my daily routine, my thoughts, my memories, my emotions. I had to make English part of me. From that moment, I changed the way I learned. I stopped memorizing words without meaning. I started using them in real conversations with myself. I stopped watching videos with the goal to just understand. I started watching them to feel. I stopped trying to be perfect. I started trying to be present. And slowly, English stopped feeling like a stranger. It started feeling like someone I had known for a long time, but had never spoken to. And something amazing happened. The more I used English to talk about my real life, the more connected I felt. I started describing my morning in English. I started saying, I'm tired. I'm happy. I need a break. These were simple sentences, but they were real. And real words have power. I started writing my feelings in English. Even if I only knew simple words, I used them to express deep emotions. And English started to speak back, not from the grammar book, but from inside my mind and my heart. The truth is, language is not just about structure. It's about connection. If you don't connect with English, you will always feel nervous, stuck, or lost. But the moment you invite English into your daily thoughts, your morning routines, your small moments, it stops being a stranger. It becomes your second voice. If English still feels like a stranger to you, don't be sad. It's not your fault. You were probably taught to study it, not to feel it. But now, you can choose a new way. You can build a real friendship with English. You can speak with your heart, even with simple words. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be real. And in the next chapter, I'll show you how I made one powerful decision, one that changed everything. I decided to bring English into every single day. That decision made English stop feeling like a visitor and start feeling like family. Chapter 3, Making a Big Decision, English Every Day. There comes a moment in every learner's life when you have to choose. You have to decide if English is just something you want to know or something you want to live with. For me, that moment came when I was walking alone in the evening, thinking deeply about my future. I asked myself, do I want to keep learning English only when I have free time? Only when I feel like it? Only when school or work asks me to? And my heart whispered a strong answer, no. I didn't want English to stay outside. I wanted it to be part of my day, every day. That was the moment I made a big decision, a decision that changed the way I live, think, and feel. I decided to bring English into my daily life. Not once a week, not for an exam, but every single day. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I didn't wait for a perfect course. I didn't wait to become fluent. I didn't wait for motivation to come. I created it. I started by asking a simple question every morning. How will I live with English today? Just like I brush my teeth, drink water, and eat food, I made a small space for English in my daily routine. And I realized something very powerful. I don't need 3 hours a day. I just need 3 minutes here. 5 minutes there, 10 minutes before sleep. English doesn't ask for big time. It asks for small, true moments. Moments that repeat. Moments that grow into habits. The first change I made was with my mind. I stopped saying, I will study English later. I started saying, I will live with English now. Even if I had only 5 minutes in the morning, I listened to a sentence in English. I said something to myself in English. I repeated a phrase I loved. And that was enough. Because what we do every day shapes who we become. Even a small thing, when done daily, becomes powerful. Like water that cuts through stone, not by force, but by consistency. I remember waking up one morning and whispering to myself in English, today is a fresh start. It was just 4 words, but they changed my mood. I felt calm. I felt focused. I felt like English was not a stranger anymore. It was a friend who greeted me at sunrise. I started doing this every day. Simple affirmations. Small self-talk. Nothing complicated. Just real, honest English. And with time, those small moments added up. I began to feel more confident, more free, more connected. Then I looked at my daily schedule and asked, where else can I add English? While brushing my teeth, I could listen to an English podcast. While eating breakfast, I could read one English sentence. While walking, I could think in English. While cooking, I could say what I'm doing. I'm washing the rice. I'm boiling water. These little things didn't feel like study. They felt like life. And that's when I realized I was no longer learning English. I was living with it. Some days were not perfect. I forgot. I felt lazy. I had bad moods. But I reminded myself, one missed day doesn't mean failure. What matters is coming back the next day. What matters is the decision. Because when you make the decision to live with English every day, your brain listens. Your heart listens. And slowly, your life begins to change. That one decision gave me something I never had before: consistency. Before that, I was always starting and stopping, studying hard for 1 week, then doing nothing for a month. I was a roller coaster learner. But after I made that strong decision, I became a daily learner. Even on lazy days, I did something small, one sentence, one word, one thought. And that made all the difference. My friend, if you're listening to this right now, I want you to know you don't need to wait to feel ready. You don't need to wait for confidence. You just need to make a small promise to yourself. From today, I will bring English into my life, every day, in small ways. It could be 2 minutes in the morning, one sentence before sleep, thinking while you wash dishes. Anything. But do it. Do it with your heart. Do it for yourself. Because daily English is powerful English. In the next chapter, I'll show you how I use the first part of my day, my morning routine, to invite English in, gently and naturally. And how this small habit made me feel fluent before I even opened my mouth. Chapter 4. Starting with my morning routine. The morning is a quiet gift. It is the start of everything. And I realized one day, if I begin my day with English, even in a small way, I can carry that feeling for the rest of the day. I didn't need a perfect plan. I just needed to choose English instead of silence. So I made a small promise to myself. From now on, I will start every morning with a little English. And that single change transformed not only my English, but also my confidence, my mood, and my entire day. At first, I wasn't sure how to do it. Should I read a book? Listen to a podcast? Watch a video? But then I thought, what do I already do in the morning? I wake up. I stretch. I look in the mirror. I make tea. I check my phone. So instead of adding something new, I simply added English into what I already do. And that made everything easier. The first thing I started doing was speaking one English sentence to myself when I opened my eyes. It could be anything simple. Good morning. Let's start the day. Today is a new chance. These little sentences had power. They gave me energy. They reminded me that I am learning, growing, improving. After saying my sentence, I would repeat it 3 times. Slowly, with feeling. I didn't care about mistakes or accent. I just wanted to feel the words. And when I did that, English became more than just sound. It became emotion. After getting out of bed, I would go to the mirror. I looked into my own eyes and said something in English. Sometimes it was funny. Sometimes serious. Sometimes just a whisper. You can do this. Don't give up. English is your friend. This became my favorite part of the morning. Because I wasn't just practicing English. I was motivating myself. I became my own teacher, my own coach. And the mirror became my classroom. While brushing my teeth, I listened to a very short English audio. Just 1 or 2 minutes. Something simple. A story. A podcast. A YouTube short. I didn't try to understand every word. I just let the sounds enter my ears. My goal was not perfection, it was exposure. The more I heard English, the more natural it felt. Slowly, my brain started to enjoy it. My ears became sharper. My mind became more active. Then came my tea or breakfast time. And I used that moment to read one small English paragraph. Not from a textbook. From something real. A news headline. A motivational quote. A story. Sometimes I read it aloud. Sometimes I just read it in my mind. But always with presence. I wasn't reading fast. I was reading with feeling. I would pause, repeat, even talk back to the sentence. If the sentence said, "You are stronger than you think," I would repeat, "Yes, I am." All of this didn't take hours. It took just 10 to 15 minutes. But it changed my mornings forever. I felt stronger, braver, more connected to English. And that small connection at the start of the day gave me the courage to keep using English later in the day too. It was like putting one small English seed in the morning and watching it grow through the hours. The beautiful thing is, you don't need anything special to do this. No teacher, no expensive tools, just your voice, your thoughts, your mirror, your morning silence. That's all. You can create your own English morning routine. You can start with one sentence, one smile, one whisper, and that's enough. Some days I woke up tired. Some days I didn't want to speak. But even then, I listened. Or I repeated just one word. Even on the hard days, I stayed connected. Because this wasn't homework. It was life. It was love. It was me and English becoming close, like morning sun and open window. My dear friend, if you want English to be part of your life, start with the morning. Don't wait until your brain is tired. Don't wait until night when you're full of stress. Begin with a clear mind, a peaceful space, a small sentence. Let your day begin with English, and you will see how English begins to live with you. In the next chapter, I'll show you one of the most powerful things I ever did. Speaking to myself. Yes, alone. Yes, sometimes feeling silly. But speaking from the heart, and that made all the difference. Chapter 5. Talking to myself in English. There was a time I thought speaking English meant I had to find someone else to talk to. A teacher, a friend, a native speaker. And because I didn't have anyone like that, I stayed silent. I waited. I hoped. I felt stuck. But one day, I read something that changed everything. It said, "The first person you must speak English with is yourself." At first, I laughed. Talk to myself? Isn't that strange? Isn't that silly? But deep inside, I knew it was exactly what I needed. I didn't need a perfect conversation partner. I needed practice. And who was always with me? Me. So, I started doing it. And it changed my fluency more than anything else. At first, it was not easy. I felt awkward. I didn't know what to say. I looked around my room and whispered, "I am sitting. I have a cup of tea. The window is open." It felt too simple. But I kept going. I talked about what I was doing. I am brushing my teeth. I am walking to the door. Then I talked about what I was feeling. I am tired. I feel lazy. I don't want to go to work. And slowly, something magical happened. I stopped translating. I started thinking in English. Not perfectly, not always, but something inside was shifting. I was no longer waiting for English. I was living it. Speaking to myself gave me something powerful, freedom. There was no judgment, no correction, no fear. I could speak slowly or fast. I could make mistakes. I could laugh. And the best part? I began to enjoy it. It felt like a game, like a secret power I had just discovered. I could practice anytime, in the shower, while cooking, while walking. I turned my whole day into a speaking session. No class needed, no partner needed, just me and my voice. And the more I did it, the more confident I became. I started having small conversations in my head. I would imagine someone asking me, "How was your day?" And I would answer in English. I would imagine giving directions, telling a story, or describing a movie. I practiced everyday situations before they happened, so when they did happen in real life, I was ready. My words came faster. My mind felt lighter. I was no longer afraid to speak because I had already spoken so many times to myself. There were also emotional benefits. When I was sad, I would say in English, "I feel lonely today." When I was proud, I said, "I did well today." These small sentences helped me connect with my feelings in English. And that made the language more personal, more human. It was no longer just about learning. It was about expressing. It was about healing. English became my second voice, the voice I used to understand myself better. Sometimes I spoke in front of a mirror. Looking into my own eyes and talking made me feel brave. It made me face my fears. I would say encouraging things. "You are learning. You are not giving up. You are getting better." And over time, those words became true. Because what we tell ourselves again and again becomes our belief. I want to tell you this from my heart. If you want to speak English fluently, don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for the perfect person. Just begin with yourself. Speak to your reflection. Speak while walking. Speak softly in your heart if you can't speak out loud. But speak. Speak like your voice matters. Because it does. You don't need perfect grammar. You don't need big words. You just need honesty, consistency, and courage. Now, I talk to myself in English every day. Sometimes for 1 minute, sometimes for 10. It doesn't matter how long. What matters is the feeling, the connection. And that daily connection has built my fluency like nothing else ever could. You can do it too. Your best speaking partner is already with you, always. In the next chapter, I'll tell you how I replaced my usual music and background noise with English listening, and how it trained my ears and changed my brain. Chapter 6. Replacing music with English listening. There was a time in my life when music was always around me. In the morning, while walking to work, during exercise, or when I felt tired, music was my background. It made me feel alive. It gave me rhythm. But one day, as I was listening to a song in my language for the 100th time, I asked myself a quiet question. What if I replaced just some of this music with English listening? Not all of it. Not forever. Just some parts of my day. Could it help me understand more? Could it help me speak better? That small question changed everything. Because when I made the switch, my ears began to learn faster than I ever imagined. I didn't know where to start, so I kept it very simple. I searched for short English podcasts for beginners. I found channels on YouTube where people spoke slowly, clearly, kindly. I found English stories, English sleep talk, English motivational talks. Some were just 5 minutes long, but those 5 minutes felt different from anything I had studied before. Because I was not studying. I was listening. I was relaxing. I was receiving the rhythm, the sound, the natural flow of English without pressure. In the beginning, I didn't understand every word. That's normal. But I kept going. I let the words wash over me. I listened while walking. I listened while cooking. I even played English audio while lying in bed before sleep. My ears started recognizing patterns. How are you? What do you mean? I don't know. These small phrases repeated again and again, and slowly they became a part of me. Not through memorization, but through repetition in life. I realized something powerful. Your brain doesn't need grammar rules to learn English. It needs sound. It needs feeling. It needs rhythm. Just like a child listens to their parents speak and slowly begins to speak, I was becoming like that child. I was learning English naturally, just by listening every day. And the more I listened, the more I started to hear not just words, but emotions. A soft sorry, a strong yes, a happy wow. These feelings stayed with me longer than any grammar rule ever did. One of the best parts was that I could choose what I liked. I didn't force myself to listen to boring content. I listened to what made me smile. A peaceful story, a motivational speaker, a soft-spoken teacher. Sometimes, I didn't even need to look at the screen. I just closed my eyes and listened. And little by little, English started feeling like music too. Not noise, but meaning. Not confusion, but connection. There were moments when I wanted to give up. I felt tired. I thought, this is not working. But then I remembered, I'm not listening to become perfect today. I'm listening to grow slowly. Just like water helps a plant, listening helps your brain. You don't see it growing every minute, but after some time, the change is clear. One day, I watched a video and realized I didn't need subtitles. I smiled. That was the result of all those small listening moments. I even made a small habit. Every time I put in my earphones, I asked myself, can this be an English moment? Sometimes the answer was yes. Sometimes I still listened to music. But even choosing English just 3 or 4 times a day made a huge difference. And it didn't feel like study. It felt like life. It felt like I was surrounding myself with English energy. You don't need to understand everything. You just need to listen, again and again. Make your ears comfortable with the sound of English. Let it be a part of your environment. Replace a few minutes of music or silence with English audio. While cleaning, while walking, while relaxing. No pressure. No need to translate. Just feel the sounds. My friend, this is one of the easiest and most powerful things you can do. If you start today, even with just 5 minutes, your brain will begin to change. And you will thank yourself in the future. Because one day, someone will speak English to you, and you will understand. Not because you studied hard, but because you listened with love. In the next chapter, I'll take you to the moment I picked up a notebook and wrote my very first diary entry in English. It was short. It was honest. And it became one of the most powerful tools in my journey. Chapter 7. My first English diary entry. It was a quiet evening. The sky was soft, and the world outside my window was calm. I sat at my desk with a simple notebook and a pen. That day, I had listened to English. I had talked to myself in the mirror. I had repeated some phrases out loud. But something inside me still felt missing. I needed to write. Not for a teacher. Not for an exam. Just for me. So I opened that notebook and wrote the date at the top in English. I stared at the page for a few minutes, nervous and unsure. Then, with a deep breath, I wrote my first sentence. Today was a slow day. And just like that, something new began. My English diary journey. At that moment, I didn't care about grammar. I didn't care about spelling. I just wanted to say something real, something simple, something from my heart. I wrote the next sentence. I woke up late. Then, I made tea. I listened to an English video. I am tired now, but I feel good. That was it. 5 small sentences. Nothing perfect. But those words gave me a strange kind of joy. Because they were mine. They were about my life. My thoughts. My voice in English. That first diary entry changed everything. It was the first time I used English to talk about my real day, my real feelings, my real world. Not imaginary situations from a textbook. Not fake dialogues. Just my truth. And I realized something powerful. When you write about your life in English, you start to believe that English belongs to you. You stop feeling like an outsider. You stop saying, English is hard. Instead, you say, this is my English. My simple English. But it's real. So I made a decision. I would write every day. Not long. Not perfect. Just a few lines. I wrote about what I did. What I saw. What I felt. If I was sad, I wrote, I feel sad today. If I had a good meal, I wrote, the food was delicious. Slowly, my sentences became longer. I started adding details. I walked to the park. The sky was gray, but the air was fresh. It felt like painting with words. Simple pictures, simple emotions, but full of meaning. And every time I wrote, I read my sentences out loud. This helped me in 2 ways. First, I improved my writing. Second, I improved my speaking. I saw how the same sentence can live on the page and also in the air. I could feel the words, hear them, own them. That connection between writing and speaking made my learning stronger. Of course, there were mistakes. Many times, I didn't know the right word. Sometimes I used the wrong tense. But I didn't stop. I didn't let perfection kill my progress. I used a simple rule. If I don't know the big word, I'll use the small one I know. That rule made me creative. It made me think. It made me brave. Soon, my diary became my best friend. I carried it with me. I wrote in cafes, in parks, on the bus. I wrote when I was happy. I wrote when I cried. I started asking questions in my diary. Why am I feeling like this? What did I learn today? What can I do better tomorrow? And I always answered them in English. That daily writing made my mind sharp and my emotions strong. English was no longer a subject. It was a part of me. Looking back, I can say this honestly. My English diary gave me fluency, not just in words, but in confidence. It helped me trust my voice. It helped me love my journey. It helped me stay connected, even on the hard days. If you are learning English, I ask you to try this. Get a notebook, or use your phone. Write 1 sentence today. I watched a video. I feel sleepy. I want to learn more. That's enough. Start small. Start honest. Start now. And if you do it daily, you will feel something change inside you. You will see that English is not just in books. It's in your life, in your heart, in your story. In the next chapter, I'll show you how I changed something very small, but powerful. I changed the language of my phone. And that small act changed the way I lived with English forever. Chapter 8. Changing my phone and life to English. It was such a simple decision, but it became one of the most powerful changes in my journey. I remember scrolling through my phone one evening, as I always did. Messages, apps, settings, everything was in my native language. And suddenly, a thought came into my mind like a soft voice. If I want to make English a part of my life, then why is the device I use the most not in English? My phone was with me all the time, morning to night. It was my alarm clock, my calendar, my music player, my dictionary, my entertainment, my connection to the world. If I could change one small thing, just the language of this phone, I could surround myself with English even more. I hesitated for a moment. What if I don't understand something? But then I remembered, growth never begins in comfort. So, I went to settings and changed the language to English. And just like that, my phone and my life started to speak in new language. At first, everything looked different. The buttons, the menus, the notifications. But it wasn't scary. It was exciting. I started to learn new words not by memorizing them, but by using them. Alarm, snooze, reminder, reply, update, download complete. These were not just words anymore. They were actions. They had meaning because I was living them every day. Every time I opened my camera, I saw a record video or switch camera. Every time I changed the brightness, I saw increase and decrease. These small things began to build my vocabulary without me even noticing. I was learning passively, naturally, joyfully. Soon, I realized that my brain was adjusting. It was no longer translating everything. It was understanding directly. I started thinking, oh, I need to check my notifications. Instead of thinking in my native language first, it felt like I had taken a big step into an English world without leaving my home. I began to explore more. I changed the language on my social media apps. My YouTube recommendations started showing me English content. My Instagram and Facebook buttons said, like, comment, share. It was everywhere. And the more I saw English, the more comfortable I felt with it. It stopped feeling foreign. It started feeling familiar. There were times I didn't understand a word, maybe in a new app or a new setting. But instead of panicking, I got curious. I searched the word. I explored. I played with the options. And through that process, I discovered something important. Real learning happens when you need it. When the word cash confused me, I looked it up. When airplane mode appeared, I tried it. These words stuck in my mind because they came with action and experience. This was not memorizing. This was living the language. And more than just learning words, I began to feel proud. Proud that I was building an English environment for myself. I didn't have to fly to another country. I didn't need an English-speaking family. I just needed to surround myself with small, daily moments of English. My phone became my teacher. My app became my classroom. And I became the kind of learner who doesn't wait. I became the kind who creates their own path. The biggest lesson I learned from this simple act was that immersion is not only physical. It is also mental. You can create an English world around you, no matter where you live. Change the language of your phone. Watch English videos. Read English captions. Write English notes. Slowly, you stop seeing English as something outside. You start feeling like it's part of your reality. And when English becomes your reality, your brain starts treating it like your own language. This one small change made my days different. Every time I unlocked my phone, I saw English. Every tap, every swipe, every notification reminded me, you are living with English now. You are not just learning it. You are using it. You are growing with it. You are making it part of your life. And that feeling gave me courage. It gave me control. I was not waiting for the perfect environment. I was creating it, word by word, click by click. If you are serious about learning English, I invite you to try this too. Change your phone's language to English. Explore your apps. Get used to new words. At first, it might feel strange, but soon, it will feel like second nature. And when it does, you'll know you've taken a real step toward fluency. A step that says, English is not just a subject. It's how I live now. In the next chapter, I'll tell you about the day I watched a movie without subtitles for the first time. I didn't understand everything, but I felt something powerful that changed my relationship with English forever. Chapter 9. The day I watched a movie without subtitles. It was a rainy evening, the kind that makes you want to stay inside with a warm drink and a soft blanket. I sat in my room, thinking about all the English videos I had watched with subtitles. Every time I watched something in English, I kept my eyes fixed on the bottom of the screen. My brain didn't trust my ears. I read fast. I tried to connect what I saw with what I heard. But deep inside, I knew I was depending too much on subtitles. They were like training wheels on a bicycle. Helpful, yes, but I wanted to ride without them. I wanted to listen, not read. That evening, I made a small but brave decision. I opened a movie, an English movie I had seen before, and this time, I turned the subtitles off. My heart beat a little faster. What if I couldn't understand anything? But then I reminded myself, understanding is not perfection. Understanding is connection. And that was enough to press play. The beginning felt strange. The characters were speaking quickly. Some words flew by like birds in the sky, too fast to catch. I missed many things. But I didn't panic. I didn't stop. I focused on the tone, the body language, the emotions. And slowly, something amazing began to happen. Even though I didn't catch every single word, I started to understand the meaning. I followed the story. I felt the emotions. I laughed at the jokes. I felt the pain of a character crying. And I realized, you don't need to understand every word to feel something real. Watching without subtitles trained my brain in a new way. It told my ears, you are strong enough. It told my heart, you don't need to be perfect to enjoy English. It was like letting go of a safety net and finding out that I could still walk. The more I listened, the more familiar the words became. Expressions like, are you okay? Let's go. What happened? Started to repeat. They didn't feel like lessons anymore. They felt like friends, voices I had heard before. And I understood them not because I studied them, but because I lived with them. One beautiful thing about watching movies without subtitles is that you stop being a student and you start becoming a human in the story. You stop translating in your mind. You start listening with your heart. You get lost in the moment. That's when real fluency begins. Not when you remember grammar rules, but when you feel the language flowing through you. That evening, I didn't understand everything, but I understood enough. And that enough gave me confidence like never before. After that experience, I made it a habit. I started watching short clips without subtitles, then TV episodes, then full movies. And every time, I got better. My ears became sharper. My brain started predicting what words were coming next. I started picking up small things, the way people said when thinking, or aha when agreeing. These little sounds are part of natural English. They are not in grammar books. You learn them only by watching and listening again and again. Sometimes, when a scene was too fast, I would rewind and watch it again. Not to catch every word, but to enjoy the rhythm, the flow, the music of English. I treated the movie like a song, something to enjoy, not something to control. And with time, I discovered something magical. My fear of speaking was going away. Why? Because I had listened so much so deeply, so emotionally, that English began to feel like my second voice. Watching movies without subtitles also taught me patience. At first, I felt uncomfortable, but slowly, my brain adapted. And that gave me a deep lesson about learning. Comfort does not create growth. Trouble does. Confusion is not your enemy. It is your invitation to grow. And the more I allowed myself to sit with that confusion, the more I improved. So if you're watching English videos with subtitles, that's okay. It's a good place to start. But one day, when you feel ready, try to let them go. Just for a few minutes. Then a little longer. Trust your ears. Trust your mind. And most importantly, trust your heart. Because understanding is not only about words. It's about feelings, expressions, rhythm, silence, everything between the lines. That rainy evening changed the way I learn English forever. I didn't become fluent in one night, but I started to believe that I could. And belief is the beginning of every transformation. You can do it too. Choose a short scene. Turn off the subtitles. Watch with your heart. And see what happens. You might be surprised by how much you already understand. In the next chapter, I'll share with you the simple sentences that became my daily life tools. Sentences that I used again and again, not because they were fancy, but because they were true, and they helped me speak with confidence. Chapter 10. Simple sentences that became my life tools. There was a moment in my English journey when I stopped chasing big words. I stopped trying to sound like a textbook. I stopped worrying about fancy grammar. And I started doing something that changed everything. I started collecting simple, real, useful sentences, sentences I could use in my everyday life. Not the ones that live in exam papers, but the ones that live in conversations, in daily emotions, in real situations. These were not special sentences, but they were powerful because they came from my own life. I used them again and again, and each time I did, they became more natural, more automatic, more mine. It all began when I noticed that I was wasting energy trying to learn long, difficult phrases just to feel smart. But I couldn't remember them when I needed them. I would freeze in real conversation. I would forget everything I studied. And one day, while talking to myself in front of the mirror, I just said something simple. I don't understand. That's it. For small words. But in that moment, I felt powerful. Because I knew I could use that sentence anywhere, anytime. At school, at work, online, in person. It was short, it was honest, and it worked. So I began building my list. One by one. Real sentences. Short, emotional, useful. Can you say that again? I'm learning English. What does this mean? I feel tired today. That's interesting. These were the kinds of sentences that connected me to people, to life, to feelings. And the more I used them, the more confident I became. I wasn't trying to be perfect. I was trying to be present. Each sentence was like a small tool in my pocket, a tool I could use when I needed to express something. When I was confused, I used. Can you repeat that? When I was curious, I said, tell me more. When I didn't know the word, I used, how do you say this in English? These simple tools gave me power, not because they were complex, but because they worked, again and again. And they worked because they were connected to real life. I also started practicing these sentences out loud every day. I would walk around my room and say, I need help. Then I'd change it. Do you need help? She needs help. I played with the sentence. I made it mine. I repeated it with emotion, with feeling, with my whole heart. And that repetition made the sentence live inside me. So when I needed it in the real world, it came out naturally, without stress. Soon, I noticed that I was building something very important, my foundation. These simple sentences were like bricks in a house. They held everything together. Once I had the foundation, I could add new things. I could grow. But without those strong basic sentences, I had nothing to stand on. And I want to tell you this from my own experience. You don't need thousands of words to speak English well. You need the right ones. The ones you use daily. The ones that matter to you. I made a habit of choosing one sentence every day and using it as much as possible. I don't know became my favorite in the beginning because it gave me space to learn. Then, I'll try again became my power sentence because it reminded me not to quit. Later, that's okay, helped me feel calm when I made mistakes. These sentences didn't just help me speak English. They helped me feel strong, human, and real. Another thing I loved was writing these sentences in my diary. Every night, I would choose one that felt close to my heart and write it down 5 times. Not like a punishment, but like a prayer. I would say it softly. I would close my eyes and imagine myself using it in a conversation. I would dream in that sentence. And that dream slowly became reality. And the beauty is, you can do this too. You can start today. Choose 10 simple sentences. Practice them. Use them. Say them in the mirror. Write them. Feel them. They are not small. They are gold. They are the keys to fluency. They are your voice in simple form. Never underestimate the power of a short, true sentence. I'm learning. I'll try again. Can you help me? These are not beginner phrases. They are human phrases. And the more you use them, the more you become fluent, not just in English, but in life. In the next chapter, I'll tell you how the mirror became my most honest English partner. It never laughed at my mistakes. It only listened and helped me find my voice. Chapter 11. English with my mirror, the most honest practice. There's something powerful about looking into your own eyes while you speak. You see your truth. You feel your fear. You face yourself completely. That's what happened to me the day I stood in front of the mirror and spoke in English for the first time. It was just a quiet morning. I had been listening to English, writing in my diary, repeating simple sentences. But still, I felt nervous when it came to speaking. Not to others, just speaking in general. My voice sounded strange. My words felt shaky. My confidence was small. But something inside me whispered, "Try the mirror." So I walked to it. I looked at myself. And I began. At first, I didn't know what to say. I just looked at my reflection and said, "Hello." Then, "My name is," I smiled at myself, a little embarrassed, but also curious. Could this really help me speak better? I kept going. I said what I was feeling. "I'm tired. I want to learn. I am trying." These were not long speeches. Just short, honest sentences. But when I saw my mouth forming the words, when I heard my own voice in English, it felt different. It felt real. It felt like English was no longer just in my mind. It was now on my voice. It was now alive. I started doing this every morning, even if only for 5 minutes. I would look into the mirror and talk. Sometimes I told myself how I was feeling. Sometimes I described my plans for the day. Sometimes I just repeated one sentence again and again. And slowly, something beautiful started happening. I stopped judging myself. I stopped being afraid of how I sounded. I started accepting my voice, my accent, my pace. The mirror didn't correct me. It didn't laugh. It didn't make me feel small. It simply reflected my effort. and that gave me peace. The more I practiced, the more comfortable I became. I started using expressions, emotions, hand movements. I looked at myself and said, "You can do this." I gave myself advice. I asked myself questions. I even made jokes and laughed alone. And this daily practice built something deeper than just language. It built self-trust. Every time I stood in front of the mirror, I wasn't just improving my English. I was building a relationship with myself. A more confident, more expressive version of me was being born, word by word. There were days when I felt tired, when I didn't want to speak. But even then, I would go to the mirror, look at myself, and say just one thing: "You showed up." That alone gave me strength. Because that's what learning a language really is. Not being perfect, but showing up again and again, even when it's hard. The mirror became a symbol of that promise. A quiet friend who listened without judgment and reminded me how far I had come. Over time, I added more to my mirror routine. I practiced job interview questions, casual conversations, greetings, and storytelling. I acted out small scenes. "Hi, can I help you?" "Yes, I'm looking for a book." It felt playful, like I was rehearsing for real life. And that's what it was, real life rehearsal. When I finally spoke to someone in English outside, it felt familiar. I had already said these words before. I had already lived these moments in front of the mirror. One of the most surprising things I discovered was how much emotion lives in our face when we speak. As I practiced in the mirror, I became more expressive. I noticed how a smile changed the tone, how raised eyebrows added curiosity, how a soft look gave warmth. Speaking English became not just about words, but about presence. I was learning to communicate, not just talk. If you're reading this and feeling shy about speaking English, I want you to know your mirror is your best practice partner. It's always available. It's always patient. And it always shows you something important: your effort. Don't worry about being perfect. Don't worry about sounding native. Just speak. Speak with your heart. Speak honestly. Start with small things. "How are you?" "I'm fine." "What's your name?" "I like this color." These small phrases, spoken with feeling and repeated with love, will transform your speaking more than any textbook ever can. I am still learning. I still use the mirror. It reminds me where I started. It shows me how far I've come. And every time I look into my own eyes and speak English, I feel proud, not because I am perfect, but because I keep going. In the next chapter, I'll share a powerful technique that helped me speak naturally. I repeated just one sentence again and again, 100 times, with heart, with rhythm, with belief. And it changed everything. Chapter 12. The Power of Repeating One Sentence 100 Times. It sounds like a strange idea at first, saying the same sentence over and over again, 100 times. But sometimes, the most powerful things in life are the simplest. I didn't believe it until I tried it. One evening, after speaking to myself in the mirror and writing in my diary, I felt stuck again. I had learned many sentences, but I still didn't feel comfortable when speaking. My words didn't flow. My brain paused too much. I kept searching for words. Then I remembered something a teacher once told me. Don't learn 100 sentences. Repeat one sentence 100 times. That night, I picked a sentence from my list. "I believe in myself." I said it slowly, softly. And then, I said it again, and again, and again, until it was no longer just a sentence. It became a part of me. At first, it felt strange. Who says the same thing so many times? But as I repeated it, something happened. The sentence started to feel smoother in my mouth. My tongue relaxed. My voice got stronger. I played with the rhythm. Fast, slow, happy, serious. I imagined different situations where I would say it, before a test, in a job interview, while feeling nervous. I stood in front of the mirror and repeated, "I believe in myself." I walked around the room, whispering it to the air, "I believe in myself." I wrote it on paper while speaking, "I believe in myself." And slowly, it didn't feel like practice anymore. It felt like truth. That one sentence gave me more fluency than reading pages of vocabulary. Because I wasn't just learning English. I was training my brain, my mouth, my heart to speak naturally. Repeating one sentence again and again taught me how to breathe with the words. I learned where to pause, how to emphasize, how to say it with feeling. I was not memorizing. I was internalizing. That's the secret. When a sentence becomes part of your body, you never forget it. I tried this method with other sentences too. I'm doing my best. Today is a new day. English is my friend. Each time, I chose one sentence and lived with it for a day. I said it in the morning. I said it while cooking. I said it during my walk. Sometimes, I recorded myself and listened, not to check mistakes, but to feel the rhythm, the emotion. I noticed how my pronunciation improved, how my speed became natural, how my confidence grew without me even trying. There's something beautiful about deep repetition. It's like watering a plant. You don't see the change in one moment. But if you do it every day, with care, the roots grow strong. The sentence becomes like a seed that opens up fluency from the inside. You don't have to think about it anymore. It just comes out of your mouth. Naturally, confidently, automatically. The more I repeated one sentence, the more I began to trust myself. I wasn't afraid to speak in front of people, because I had said that sentence 100 times to myself. It became my backup in moments of fear. If I didn't know what to say, I returned to that sentence. It was my anchor, my safety. And slowly, I built a collection of such sentences. Sentences that I had repeated so often that they became my foundation. They gave me strength when I felt weak. They helped me speak when I felt frozen. And repetition is not boring when you do it with emotion. You can sing the sentence. You can act it out. You can imagine different scenes. You can make it a game. And every time you repeat, you are building fluency without pressure. No stress. No grammar drills. Just real practice with real feeling. This is how babies learn. This is how we learned our first language. And this is how I began to feel fluent in English. Not through complexity, but through consistency. If you're learning English, I invite you to try this. Choose one sentence that you love. Maybe it's simple. Maybe it's emotional. Say it 10 times today, then 20 tomorrow. Try to reach 100. Do it with your heart, not just your mouth. Feel the meaning. Taste the sound. Live the sentence. And watch what happens. You'll feel the words becoming yours. That night, when I first repeated, "I believe in myself," 100 times, I didn't just learn English. I learned something about me. I learned that I am not weak. I am not too late. I am not broken. I just needed to believe. And one sentence at a time, I began to. In the next chapter, I'll show you how I stopped learning English from faraway examples and started learning directly from my own life. That shift made everything personal, powerful, and unforgettable. Chapter 13. Learning English from my own life. There was a point in my English journey when I realized I was learning too many things that had nothing to do with me. Dialogues from textbooks about shopping malls I'd never seen. Stories about imaginary people doing imaginary jobs. Vocabulary lists full of words I would never use. And one day, as I sat there feeling overwhelmed, something hit me deep in my heart. Why am I trying to learn English through someone else's life? Why not through mine? Why not take my own morning, my own room, my own emotions, and use them to grow in English? That was the day everything changed. I stopped searching outside, and I started looking inside. I started learning English from my own life. It began with something very simple. I described my morning in English, not as a grammar exercise, but as a way to live the language. I said things like, I woke up late today. I made tea. The weather is hot. I feel lazy. These were not long or difficult sentences, but they were mine. They were true. And because they were true, they stayed with me. They touched my memory. They connected English to my real experience. And that connection made the words stronger, deeper, and easier to remember. I started turning every small thing I did into a language opportunity. When I brushed my teeth, I whispered, I'm brushing my teeth. When I cooked, I said, I'm chopping onions. When I looked out the window, I said, the sky is cloudy. These sentences were not from a book. They were from my own life. And because of that, they felt natural. They felt real. I wasn't just speaking English. I was speaking my English, shaped by my days, my actions, my heart. Then I began to describe my feelings too. I said, I feel tired. I'm nervous about tomorrow. I miss my friend. These simple emotional phrases helped me in two powerful ways. First, they helped me express myself more clearly in English. Second, they helped me understand myself more deeply as a person. I was no longer afraid of small emotions. I gave them voice. And that voice was English. That made the language more than just a skill. It made it a part of my emotional life. One thing that helped me was keeping a list of useful personal sentences. I would add new ones every time I experienced something new. After a long day, I'd write, today was stressful. After meeting someone, I'd write, it was nice to see her again. I didn't need to memorize 100 new words each week. I just needed to focus on the sentences that reflected my actual world. And slowly, my English vocabulary grew in the most natural way, through my own experience. I also started asking myself simple daily questions in English. What did I do today? What was the best part of my day? What do I want tomorrow to look like? These questions made me think in English. They made me go deeper. And every answer I gave built new sentences, new phrases, and more comfort with the language. It didn't feel like studying anymore. It felt like living. And that made all the difference. The more I connected English to my real life, the more it became part of me. I stopped needing flashcards. I stopped translating in my mind. I began to live in the language naturally. If I didn't know a word, I would use a simple one. If I forgot something, I'd describe it another way. This kind of flexible thinking came from using English every day to talk about things I actually care about. That kind of learning goes deep. It becomes part of your identity. And you don't need anything special to do this. Just your daily routine. Your feelings. Your thoughts. You can begin right now. Look around you. What do you see? Say it in English. What are you doing? Say it in English. What are you thinking? Try to express it in English. Even one word is enough. Then two. Then five. Then a sentence. And soon, your day becomes your lesson. Your world becomes your classroom. Your life becomes your language guide. When you learn from your own life, you never run out of things to say. Because every day is full of new stories, new emotions, new chances to practice. And it's never boring, because it's always real. That's the kind of learning that lasts. Not because someone told you to do it, but because you lived it with your heart. In the next chapter, I'll share one of the most important steps in my speaking journey: finding a safe person to practice with. Someone who didn't judge, didn't laugh, just listened and supported me when I needed it most. Chapter 14: Finding a safe person to speak English with. There comes a point in every language learner's journey when you realize you can't walk the road alone forever. You can talk to yourself, you can write in a diary, you can listen and repeat. But sooner or later, you feel the need to speak to another human being, to be heard, to be answered, to be understood. That moment came to me like a quiet ache. I had been doing all the right things. I was living in English every day, building sentences from my life, growing in confidence slowly. But I knew something was missing. I needed someone to speak with. Not a teacher with red pens. Not a classmate who competed with me. Just someone safe. Someone kind. Someone who would not laugh when I made mistakes. Someone who would not make me feel small. I didn't need correction. I needed connection. At first, I was afraid to ask. I didn't want to bother anyone. I didn't want to be judged. My voice felt weak. My grammar was still not perfect. My vocabulary was still limited. But one day, I decided to take a small risk. I reached out to a friend who spoke some English and simply said, "Can I practice with you sometimes?" I still remember how my hands were shaking when I sent the message. But when they replied, "Of course, I'd love to help you," my heart opened. It was the beginning of something beautiful. We started with very small conversations. "How was your day? What did you eat? What are your plans?" I made mistakes. I forgot words. I laughed nervously. But they listened. They waited. They didn't correct me unless I asked. They just let me speak. And for the first time, I felt the joy of speaking English with someone who understood the struggle, who saw the effort, not the errors, who gave me space to grow without pressure. That space became my safe home, a place where I could explore my voice freely. Speaking with someone kind and patient helped me in ways I never imagined. I stopped fearing pauses. I stopped hiding when I didn't know what to say. I began to use the simple sentences I had practiced so many times. And when I used them in real conversation, I felt proud. I felt powerful. Because they worked. I didn't need big words. I just needed the courage to speak. And having a safe person gave me that courage. Sometimes we talked for 5 minutes. Sometimes we just sent short voice notes. Sometimes we didn't speak for days. But the connection remained. Knowing I had someone who supported my journey made me feel less alone. It motivated me to keep going. It reminded me that language is not only about words. It's about connection, emotion, and trust. And that trust helped my words flow more easily, more naturally. One of the best moments came when my speaking partner said, "Your English is getting better." I smiled so big, I almost cried. Because it wasn't just about English. It was about being seen, being appreciated, being understood. That small sentence gave me more energy than 100 grammar lessons. It reminded me why I started. It reminded me that progress is not always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet voice saying, "Keep going." If you're learning English, I want to tell you this. You don't need a perfect partner. You need a kind one. Someone who listens. Someone who encourages. Someone who lets you be yourself. It could be a friend, a family member, someone online. Even if they are not fluent, even if they are learning too, you can grow together. You can laugh together. You can make mistakes together. And that's how you become fluent. Not by speaking perfectly, but by speaking freely. And if you can't find someone yet, don't give up. Keep looking. There are many people in this world who are also looking for someone just like you. Someone honest, someone brave, someone trying. You can be that person for someone else too. Share your voice. Offer support. Create a space where learning feels safe, warm, and human. I am deeply thankful for the person who gave me that first safe space. They helped me believe in my ability to communicate, not just in English, but from my heart. That belief changed my life. And I know it can change yours too. In the next chapter, I'll tell you about a magical moment. The first time I realized I was thinking in English without trying. It didn't happen overnight. But when it came, it felt like I had entered a new world. Chapter 15. When I started to think in English. It didn't happen in one day. It didn't happen in one week. But one quiet afternoon, as I was walking down the street, something small and beautiful happened inside my mind. And I didn't even notice it at first. I saw a little girl running past me, laughing, and my mind whispered, "She's so happy." That sentence came so naturally, so softly, that I didn't realize it was in English. A few seconds later, I stopped walking and smiled. That was it. That was the moment. I had started thinking in English without planning it, without forcing it, without translating in my head. It just appeared, like a bird flying into the sky. That small sentence, born inside me without effort, was the beginning of a new chapter in my English life. Thinking in English had always felt like a dream to me, something only fluent speakers could do. In the beginning, I translated everything from my native language. I would think a sentence, then try to change it into English, word by word. It was tiring. It was slow. Sometimes, the meaning got lost. But that was the only way I knew. I thought that's how it had to be. I didn't understand that thinking in English is not something you force. It's something that grows, slowly, naturally, through daily use, through repetition, through love. It's like a plant that takes root deep inside and one day surprises you with its first flower. After that first moment, I began to notice it more. I would wake up in the morning and hear a soft sentence in my mind. I don't want to get up yet. Or I would forget something and say to myself, where is my phone? Not in my language. In English. These small thoughts made me realize that English was no longer outside of me. It had entered my thinking. It was now part of my inner world, not just my outer learning. And that realization made me feel proud, deeply, quietly proud. The best part about thinking in English is the freedom it gives you. You no longer have to translate. You don't get stuck looking for the right word. You just think it. And because you think it, you say it. Speaking becomes faster. Writing becomes smoother. You become more confident because you're not stopping yourself at every step. You're flowing. And that flow comes from trust. Trust in your brain. Trust in your heart. Trust in your practice. Thinking in English doesn't mean you never use your native language. It doesn't mean you forget your roots. It means you allow your brain to choose what's easiest, what's closest, what's most comfortable at that moment. And the more you use English in your daily life, the more your brain chooses it naturally. That's the secret. You don't need to push yourself. You just need to live with the language every day, even in the smallest ways. That's what I had been doing without realizing it. Talking to myself. Writing a diary, listening, repeating, speaking in the mirror, watching movies. All of these actions were slowly training my brain to think in English. And one day it just clicked. Of course, there were still days when I thought in my native language. That's normal. But now I had a choice. I could switch between languages with more ease. I could describe my feelings in English without struggling. I could walk into a store and think, let's ask politely. I could hear a sentence and understand it without translating. And that small shift changed how I saw myself. I wasn't just a learner anymore. I was a speaker. I was a thinker. I was becoming someone who lived with English from me inside out. One beautiful thing I did to support this was to create a thinking corner in my day. Just 5 minutes. I would sit quietly and try to describe my thoughts in English. Not speak them, just think. What did I feel? What did I want? What did I dream about? I gave my brain a quiet invitation to use English. And it accepted. With time, those thoughts got clearer, faster, more natural. They became part of my identity. If you're learning English and wondering how to think in it, my advice is simple. Stop trying to force it. Just use English every day in real, emotional, personal ways. Repeat sentences that matter. Listen to voices that move you. Write about your truth. Talk to yourself. Surround yourself with the language. And one day, without warning, your brain will start choosing English. You'll be walking, cooking, brushing your teeth, and suddenly a sentence will appear. That sentence is your reward. It is your milestone. It is your proof that you're growing deeply and truly. In the next chapter, I'll tell you how I made peace with one of the biggest fears every learner has. The fear of making mistakes. I'll share how I stopped being afraid and started learning through every wrong word I spoke. Chapter 16. Making mistakes without pain. For a long time, mistakes were my enemy. Every time I spoke English and said something wrong, I felt small. Every time someone corrected me, I felt embarrassed. I remember once trying to say a simple sentence, but I got the tense wrong. A person laughed, not in a cruel way, but still, I felt it in my heart. That little laugh echoed in my mind for days. I stopped speaking for a while. I thought, I'm not good enough. What if I always make mistakes? What if people think I'm stupid? These thoughts are heavy. They stop you. They make you afraid to open your mouth. And for a while, they stopped me too. But then something happened, something that changed my relationship with mistakes forever. I was watching a video where a child was learning to speak. He said a sentence in broken English, but his mother smiled and responded gently. She didn't laugh. She didn't interrupt. She didn't correct every mistake. She let him finish. She understood him, and she answered with love. At that moment, I realized something powerful. Children make mistakes all the time, but they don't stop. They keep speaking. They keep learning. They keep growing. Why? Because they are not afraid. They are allowed to be imperfect, and that freedom gives them power. So I made a promise to myself. From that day on, I would make mistakes. Not just accept them, but welcome them. I would stop treating them as failure and start seeing them as steps. Because the truth is, every mistake is a message. It tells you what to learn next. It tells you what to improve. It tells you that you are trying. And trying means progress. The first thing I did was give myself permission. I said out loud, "It's okay to make mistakes." I looked in the mirror and said it again. I will not be perfect, but I will be better. That small sentence broke the fear. I felt lighter. I felt free. I went out and spoke English with people, knowing I might mess up. And yes, I did. But something magical happened. The world didn't end. People still understood me. Some even smiled and encouraged me. I realized that most people are not waiting to judge you. They're just happy you're trying. Then I started writing down my mistakes. Not to feel bad, but to learn. I had a small notebook, and every time I noticed an error, I wrote it. Then I wrote the correct form next to it. I go yesterday. I went yesterday. Simple, clear, no shame. I treated my mistakes like puzzles. I played with them. I studied them. I thanked them. Because each one taught me something new. One of the most beautiful things I learned was this. The moment you stop fearing mistakes is the moment you start learning faster. Without fear, your brain is more open. You speak more. You try more. And when you try more, you grow more. That's why the best learners are not the ones who know the most grammar. They're the ones who are not afraid to be wrong. I began to notice that even native speakers make mistakes. They forget words. They pause. They say things like, you know what I mean. That gave me even more courage. If people who grew up speaking English can make mistakes, then why should I feel ashamed when I do? I stopped chasing perfection and started chasing connection. I focused on expressing myself, not impressing others. And the biggest change was in my heart. I became kinder to myself. I stopped calling myself bad at English. I started saying, I'm improving. I celebrated small wins. I laughed at silly errors. I turned pain into play. And English became more fun, more human, more real. If you are afraid of making mistakes, I understand. I've been there. But I want you to know, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be brave. Speak with your heart. Let the mistakes come. They are not your weakness. They are your teachers. They are your progress. They are the path to fluency. In the next chapter, I'll share how English became more than just a language for me. It became a feeling. It became the emotion I used to express my real self, not just my grammar knowledge. And that's when I truly fell in love with it. Chapter 17. English became my emotion, not just my language. There is a moment in every language learner's journey when something changes deep inside. At first, we learn English like a system. We memorize words. We practice grammar. We repeat sentences. We focus on structure, rules, and correctness. But then, one day, English becomes something more. It becomes a feeling, a way to express what's in your heart, a bridge between your inner world and the outside world. That moment came to me slowly, without warning. One evening, I was writing in my diary in English, just like I did every night. I wrote a sentence, I miss someone today. And suddenly, I felt tears in my eyes. Not because the grammar was perfect, not because I used advanced vocabulary, but because the words were real. They were mine. I wasn't just writing in English. I was feeling in English. And that changed everything. Until that point, English had mostly been a skill. I saw it as something I had to learn, to pass exams, to get a job, to travel. It was useful, but it was outside of me. It was like a tool I picked up when I needed it. But in that moment, when I wrote about my sadness, I realized something deeper. English was now a part of me. It wasn't just helping me speak to others. It was helping me speak to myself. It had become my second voice, my emotional language, my friend when I had no one else to talk to, my way of saying things I couldn't say in my own language. After that, I began to use English not only to describe what I was doing, but to express what I was feeling. If I felt tired, I wrote, I'm exhausted today. If I felt proud, I said, I did something good today. If I felt afraid, I whispered, I'm scared. but I'll try anyway. These were not big or complex sentences, but they were full of truth. And when English becomes your emotional language, everything changes. You connect with it on a deeper level. It's no longer a subject. It's a mirror, a light, a path that shows you who you really are. I started talking to myself in English when I was feeling low. I looked into the mirror and said, "You're strong. You've come so far." I used English to comfort myself, to motivate myself, to heal myself. And somehow, using English made those words feel new and fresh. They didn't carry the same emotional weight as my native language. It was like I was hearing them for the first time. And that gave them more power. It helped me believe them. Even when I listened to English songs, I began to feel the lyrics more. I didn't just translate them, I felt them. A soft line like, "You're not alone," made my heart feel warm. A phrase like, "Keep going, you're almost there," made me feel brave. I repeated those words to myself throughout the day, and they became part of my emotional life. My English wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that realness gave me strength. One of the most beautiful parts of this transformation was that I began to connect with others on a deeper level. When I spoke English, I wasn't just sharing information, I was sharing feelings. I could say, "I understand how you feel," or "That sounds really hard." And when someone heard those words from me, spoken in my imperfect but honest English, they didn't care about my accent or my grammar. They cared about the emotion behind the words. And I realized, fluency is not about speaking perfectly. It's about making others feel something. From that point on, I stopped seeing English as a test I had to pass. I saw it as a tool for emotional freedom, a language of expression, a way to tell my story in a new voice. A voice that was still growing, still learning, but already full of life. I started writing poems in English. Short, simple, emotional lines. I started saying affirmations in English before sleep. "I'm doing well. I'm learning. I'm proud of myself." These small moments made English part of my spirit. And when English lives in your emotions, you don't forget it. You don't need flashcards. You don't need pressure. The words stay because they're connected to your life. They're not just in your mind, they're in your heart. So if you feel stuck with grammar or vocabulary, try this. Don't study more. Feel more. Use English to express your joy, your fear, your love, your sadness. Speak with emotion, even if your words are simple. Write about your real day. Say what you truly feel. Because the moment English becomes your emotional language, it becomes unforgettable. In the next chapter, I'll take you through one of the most special days of my journey. The first day, I lived completely in English, from morning till night. It wasn't perfect, but it was powerful, and it proved how far I had come. Chapter 18, A Day in My Life, completely in English. It was not something I planned. It wasn't written in my calendar. I didn't wake up thinking, "Today I will live only in English." It just happened, naturally, gently, like a quiet sunrise that turns into a warm, full day. I remember waking up that morning and whispering to myself, "Good morning." I didn't even think about it. It just came out in English. Then, as I made my bed, I said softly, "Let's start the day." Again, no translation, no effort. The words were simply there, like a familiar friend. That was the moment I realized, maybe today, just for fun, just as an experiment, I could live my whole day in English. From the time I opened my eyes until I went to sleep, every thought, every sentence, every moment, in English. I didn't put pressure on myself. I didn't try to speak fast or sound perfect. I just promised to use the English I already had. The simple words, the real sentences, the emotional phrases I had collected over time. So I began my day like always. But this time, I described everything I did in English. I'm brushing my teeth. Time to make tea. The sun is shining. I talked to myself like a narrator in a peaceful story. It felt calm. It felt beautiful. It felt like I had finally invited English into my real life, not just my learning life. As I sat down for breakfast, I opened an English podcast. I didn't understand every word, but I followed the meaning. I repeated a few phrases out loud. That makes sense. I didn't think about that. And then I responded to the speaker, even though they couldn't hear me. I said, "That's interesting," and smiled. I was having a conversation, not with a person, but with the language itself. And it felt alive. Throughout the day, I kept using English. I made a to-do list in English. I talked to myself while doing small tasks. Let me check my messages. I need to wash the dishes. Don't forget to drink water. These tiny sentences created a rhythm in my mind. My thoughts flowed in English more and more. And even when I felt tired, I didn't stop. I just slowed down and said, "I need a break." Those few words gave me comfort. When I met a friend in the afternoon, I told them, "I'm doing an English day today." They smiled and supported me. I spoke a few English sentences, and even though our conversation wasn't 100% English, I kept returning to it again and again. I asked myself questions inside my head. What is she saying? How can I explain my idea? It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Later that evening, I watched a short video in English. I tried to describe the video out loud in 1 or 2 sentences. The man is talking about his trip. He looks happy. I didn't try to explain everything. I just focused on feeling the language. And when I cooked dinner, I spoke aloud to the vegetables and the rice. Now I'm chopping the onion. Let's boil the water. Yes, it felt silly, but it also felt fun, free, honest. It was my English, spoken with love, without fear. As the day came to a close, I sat with my notebook and wrote. Today, I lived in English. I listed the things I had done, how I felt, and what I learned. And I realized something powerful. I didn't speak perfectly, but I spoke consistently. I didn't understand everything, but I understood enough. I didn't use advanced grammar, but I used real, emotional English. And that was more than enough. That was success. That day wasn't about showing off or reaching some high level. It was about testing myself gently, giving myself the chance to prove that English is not just a classroom activity. It can be a part of your real, messy, beautiful daily life. You don't need to wait until you're fluent. You just need to decide. Decide to try. Decide to speak. Decide to think in English for 1 full day. And when you do, something changes inside. You begin to trust yourself more. You begin to see that you can live with the language, not just study it. I've done many English days since then. Some were easier. Some were harder. Some were short. Some lasted all day. But every single one helped me grow. Every single one made me feel more fluent, more connected, more alive in English. And now, it doesn't even feel like a challenge anymore. It feels normal. English is not a stranger. It's part of my everyday rhythm, my daily voice. If you've never done a full day in English, I encourage you to try. Even just half a day. Even just a few hours. Talk to yourself. Write. Listen. Think. And most of all, feel the language. Let it walk beside you like a friend. You'll be surprised at how much you already know. and even more surprised by how much confidence it gives you. In the next chapter, I'll reflect on what I truly gained through all these small, daily efforts. Because what I received was not just language. It was something much deeper: confidence, courage, and a new way to see myself. Chapter 19. What I gained. Not just language, but confidence. As I look back on the journey that brought me here, from struggling to say one sentence to living full days in English, I realized something very powerful. I didn't just learn a language. I didn't just collect words or build grammar. I gained something far greater. I gained confidence. I gained courage. I gained a new version of myself. A version that speaks up. A version that tries without fear. A version that believes. And that belief didn't come from books or exams. It came from small actions, taken again and again, with heart. It came from repeating one sentence 100 times. From whispering to myself in the mirror. From failing and still continuing. And over time, those small things built something unshakable inside me. In the beginning, I was shy. I was afraid of being wrong. I was scared that others would laugh or not understand me. I used to lower my voice, hide behind short answers, and pretend to be confident when inside I was full of doubt. But slowly, as I brought English into my life day by day, my fear began to shrink. I started to speak a little louder. I started to say, "I don't understand," without shame. I started to laugh at my mistakes instead of hiding from them. And that was the moment when confidence started growing. Not like fire, but like a slow-burning candle. Quiet, warm, strong. Learning English taught me how to show up for myself. When I practiced shadowing or wrote in my diary, it wasn't just about language. It was about keeping a promise to myself. It was about saying, "You matter. Your growth matters." And when you show up every day for something, even for 5 minutes, your mind starts to trust you. Your heart begins to open. Your voice begins to rise. You start to believe that yes, you can do this. You don't need to be perfect to make progress. You just need to be present. This confidence started to spread into other parts of my life too. I began to speak more freely with people, not just in English, but in my own language as well. I began to believe that I had something valuable to say. I applied for opportunities one was once too scared to try. I joined groups. I made new friends. And every time I used English to express my real self, I felt stronger. Because English wasn't just helping me speak to others. It was helping me discover myself. There's something special about learning to express emotions in a new language. You begin to see yourself with new eyes. You say, "I'm proud of myself," and suddenly feel that pride in a different way. You say, "I'm doing my best," and it feels like a fresh beginning. These words become mirrors, showing you that you are more than your fears, more than your mistakes. They show you that you are becoming the person you've always wanted to be. And here's the truth. I didn't gain this confidence by being perfect. I gained it by being honest. By trying again and again. By staying kind to myself when I stumbled. I spoke when my words felt weak. I wrote when my grammar was unsure. I listened when my ears got tired. And every time I didn't give up, I grew. That growth became my strength. That strength became my confidence. Now when someone asks me, "Are you fluent in English?" I smile. Not because I speak like a native, but because I no longer fear the question. I no longer feel the need to prove myself. I speak with heart, with feeling, with joy. And that is what true fluency means to me. Not perfect sentences, but perfect honesty, real emotion, fearless effort. If you are still on your journey, I want you to know what you are building is more than English. You are building belief. You are building the ability to show up, to speak your truth, to rise after you fall. And that is what will carry you forward, not just in language, but in life. In the final chapter, I'll share how English stopped being just a goal for me and became a true friend, a quiet, strong part of my everyday life. Not something I study, but something I live with every single day. Chapter 20. Now, English is not my subject, it's my friend. When I first started learning English, I treated it like a subject in school. Just like math or history, it had rules. It had tests. It had right answers and wrong ones. And like most students, I was afraid of getting it wrong. I was afraid of making mistakes. I studied hard, memorized grammar, wrote long lists of vocabulary. I spent hours with textbooks, hoping that one day I would become fluent. But the more I studied like this, the more distant English felt. It was like chasing a train I could never catch. Always running, always behind. English was something outside of me, something I had to fight to learn. But today, as I sit here, I can honestly say something very different. Something I never imagined saying when I started. Today, English is not my subject, it's my friend. This change didn't happen in one big moment. It happened in many small ones. Day by day, sentence by sentence, smile by smile. It began when I stopped studying English like a subject and started living with it like a friend. I brought it into my mornings, into my thoughts, into my feelings, into my mirror conversations. I began to see English not as a test to pass, but as a voice that wanted to grow inside me. A voice that could help me tell my story, express my heart, understand others, and understand myself. A friend is someone you feel safe with. Someone who listens to you. Someone who accepts your mistakes and stays with you anyway. That's how I started treating English. I no longer felt ashamed when I forgot a word or used a wrong tense. I didn't punish myself. I didn't give up. I simply said, it's okay. You're learning. You're trying. Keep going. I became patient with English. And in return, English became patient with me. There were days when I didn't feel like practicing. Days when I was tired. Days when I had no motivation. But just like a good friend, English waited. It didn't leave. It didn't judge me. It welcomed me back when I was ready. Even if I only spoke for 5 minutes or listened to a short podcast, I felt connected. That gentle presence, that daily connection, is what changed everything. I no longer saw English as a task. I saw it as a part of my daily life, just like drinking water or saying goodnight. And like any real friendship, my relationship with English is not perfect. Sometimes I still get frustrated. Sometimes I still forget words. But now I laugh. I smile. I talk to myself kindly. I say, it's okay, we're still growing. I don't run from English. I run to it. I use it when I'm happy, when I'm sad, when I'm thinking about my future, when I'm remembering my past. It's with me always. It's not in my bag. It's in my breath. English has given me more than just words. It has given me confidence. It has given me opportunities. It has helped me meet new people, watch new stories, think in new ways. It has helped me become someone I never thought I could be. Someone who can stand up and say, yes, I speak English. Not perfectly, but honestly, proudly, with heart. That is the power of friendship. It lifts you up, even when you feel small. And now, when people ask me how I became fluent, I don't say, I studied very hard. I say, I made English my friend. I spoke to it with love. I listened to it with patience. I welcomed it into my life. Every day, even when I didn't feel ready, I used it in my thoughts. I used it in my emotions. I used it in my life. And like a true friend, it stayed. If you're listening now and still see English as a hard subject, I want to gently invite you to change your view. Don't fight with English. Don't fear it. Be kind to it. Sit with it. Walk with it. Speak to it like you would to someone you care about. Let it grow slowly. Let it be part of your morning, your evening, your heart. And one day, just like me, you will realize English is no longer a goal. It's a friend that walks beside you, step by step, sentence by sentence, through every part of your beautiful journey. And this journey is just the beginning. Your English friend will grow with you, laugh with you, cry with you, and remind you how far you've come. All you have to do is keep walking with it. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If my story felt like your story, remember this. You don't need to be perfect, just present. Speak with feeling. Practice with love. Make English a part of your life, not just your study. If this video helped you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me in the comments which chapter felt closest to your heart. Keep going. English is not just a language, it's your friend.